Welcome everybody to the IBN College Football Podcast. We are back after a slight hiatus. Had to get over the swine flu, courtesy of Texas. And then obviously Marcus and I are very upset at the state of Ohio State football right now. And we don't want to give Holla any more ammunition. Been fighting off all these day naysayers, even our own Chase. You backstabbing Jezebel.
I want to say this.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Everybody needs to relax. He loses one regular season game in 3 years, and everybody starts to go haywire. Now, I will admit, Kerry Coombs was a bad hire, right? And everybody sees that now. And I think there was some loyalty there. Urban guy, Coombs a great recruiter, developer, DB, so many other things there that he gave him a shot. And I think for day two, it was about having that, somebody who knows the program, not having to go out to hire somebody, blah, 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 blah. Now, CJ Stroud is obviously hurt, and Day has made the decision to sit him. And I'm just like, everybody relax. Now, I get it. CJ Stroud isn't Justin Fields, and the standard at Ohio State is really, really high. So I think now, it's the guy, you got to let him coach through it, right? Like at every sign of adversity, you can't just bail and panic and go haywire like Chase and, want to fire everybody. I'm just like, let the guy coach through it. Every coach, Saban has had down years. Dabo's having a rough year. Like, you got to just let him. It's going to be fine, man. Everything's going to be okay. I personally think at the end of the season, and it's a lot of football left. It's only 3 games. It's only, a quarter of the season has passed. There's a lot of football left, and we've seen this so many teams, especially a young football team. It just sucks that at Ohio State that the standard is so high that, man, at every position, it's got to be a Chase Young. It's got to be a Justin Fields. It's got to be those caliber players. And I think they're developing into that, but it's still it's a work in progress. And I'm just like, I'm not even entertaining Chase. I'm not entertaining the Ryan Day things. I'm not doing it. I'm just like, okay, if that's how you guys feel, have it. I'm not buying. I'm personally not buying into it. They don't buy into it. And this Ohio State fan base is toxic. We're the most toxic fan base in college football. Because I don't know what it is, man, but it's just at the sign of anything, they go, hey, I mean, it is literally pandemonium. Fire everybody. This guy stinks. We take it back to the Hellcats. Get out of Columbus. Like, I'm like, look, have faith in Ryan Day. I think everything's going to be all right.
Well, speaking for me personally, I'm just looking for a place to call home that wins. And and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't too hype about the Oregon matchup, but I was shocked at the outcome. And I agree, man. This team is young. We talked about that before the season started. You got to give it some time. I get, like I said on the podcast with Ronnie, I get that, the expectations are ridiculous, but he's an overachiever if you really consider all things. Like the guy came in winning, only lost like 3 regular season games. He's been to the playoffs. He's been to a national championship. And literally those were his first 2 seasons. So, of course, if he loses a game to a Pac-12 team, it doesn't matter if it's Oregon or not. Just the fact that they came into Columbus and they won convincingly, that's like everybody's like the sky is falling. But like I'm with you. Relax a little bit. I mean, I'm not a big Stroud fan either. I tried to give him a chance. I really did. I swear I did. I'm out, man. I'm out.
I think I'm out on him too, but here's the thing. Now, okay, we got Akron, Rutgers, and Maryland, right? Mm-hmm. Before we face Indiana. If Kyle McCord comes out and just looks like he belongs, right? Like, I don't think you can really get a gauge of how good he is, but it's just the throws that CJ Stroud have missed and struggled with. Like, being the quarterback that Oregon game, as great as I thought Stroud played, I mean, he missed layups, man. He missed passes that, he missed the game time throw to, Garrett Wilson wide open. Yeah. And it's just those type of plays that if you're going to be the quarterback at Ohio State, you got to make. So if Kyle McCord plays well this Saturday, I don't know. And then let's say you sit him again next weekend. I think part of this is like, yeah, he's hurt, but I'm going to see what, Kyle McCord was the number 2 rated quarterback recruit. He's he's not a slouch. He's another 5-star too. So it's like, when you got this embarrassment of riches behind him, it's just life in the big city. So, man, I don't want to bail on him yet, but I think I saw enough to just be like, man, I think he's solid. I think he's a game man. I think he'd be really, really good at a place where he can develop long term. But a place like at Ohio State, that's not always the case for the quarterback, man. Like, you got to be elite. You got to be exceptionally skilled while you're developing. You can't, come in. And then he just always looks so rattled. That's the thing to me. And it's like, man, settle down. I mean, he was struggling, man, the Oregon game early to just deliver, basic passes. And I was like, man, but then he gives you enough to be like, damn, no, he's got it. But I don't know. It's just been a weird 3 games, but I mean, he's young. We'll see.
I need winners. Ohio State, Clemson, they're not looking too good, but
Oklahoma either. Oklahoma
looking vulnerable too, which brings me to the worst part of this show right now is that we have to give props to Georgia and how they look and honestly really give them their due. I mean, Kirby he's winning games and he's winning them even the hard ones, like the game against Clemson when the offense couldn't get going, they still found a way. I think one thing that Hala has been saying to us in the chat, and I think is true, is that they are playing basically with house money. They've had a pretty injured team through COVID, through just injuries in general, and they're still getting the job done. So I can see why he's optimistic when they get everybody back, when they get Pickens back, when they really are at full strength. Now, what does that mean when they play Bama? Because at this point, that's what we're looking at. It's Georgia against Bama. Like that's what their season is resting on is how they look against Alabama. I think honestly, if their only loss is Alabama, they're still a lot to get into the playoffs at this point.
I mean, I think, look, what can we say about Georgia, right? Like, I think they're probably one of the 3 most talented teams in college football, and this is what they've always been. And I always tell Howard, like, nobody said Georgia wasn't good or they're not capable of winning a national title, but it's just in today's college football where teams are getting so many possessions. If you think you're going to hold Bama has taken the approach now of meet me at 35 points. Mm-hmm. And I never thought I'd see Nick Saban really adapt to that style of play. And they play complementary football now. Like, that defense may not be as elite as it once was, but it's damn sure good enough, right? Like, that's the defense Nick Saban does now. It is, man, look, we may give up some yards between 30 and 30, but once you get into the high red zone, into the red zone, we're going to make you take 3. Because we know we're going to send John Mechie, Jamison Williams, and Bryce Young at you for, 70 possessions. Can Georgia win a game where they're going to have to score points? I don't know yet. And that's not a detriment. That's why I try to tell Holly. It's not that I'm knocking Georgia. It's that when the time, same as Ohio State or Clemson or Oklahoma, when the time comes when you need a stop, can you get it?
Yeah.
When the time comes when you need to score points, can you do it? I think that's where I'm at with Georgia. The same, with those other teams. It's like, yeah, you're talented, you're good, but ultimately, and I don't know. I mean, looking at the schedule, it's it's overly manageable. I think the rest of the schedule to where the next 2 teams. I mean, Will Levis in Kentucky looking pretty solid. I know they hired Sean McVay's assistant offensive coordinator to run the offense in Kentucky now, so it looks a little bit different than how it is, still very run heavy. I think maybe Kentucky could give them a run, play them in a really close game. And then, of course, the world's largest cocktail party in Florida. And I think those are just 2 winnable games. I don't see anybody on that schedule to really challenge Georgia, over the next couple of weeks. So, I mean, look, like you said, they've been dominant, man. And everybody they played, they look pretty good against Clemson. All offense, I still can't manage how you can't manage an offensive touchdown with that much talent on the field. Like that is a wild, something wild to think about. And that's the only thing I'm saying. It's like, yeah, your defense is elite, but if you're telling me if you got to go against another good, maybe not an elite defense, because I don't think Clemson's defense is elite. I think it's really good. Mm-hmm. And it's like if you go against another good defense, it's just going to be a stalemate. You're just going to be hoping to win a 21-10, 21-17 type game. That's just not happening. I don't think that's realistic with Alabama. And I don't think that's realistic really with any type of playoff level offense that they face. I don't know who it will be, but we'll see. I mean, they're really, really good and they're really talented. I think JT is probably a step above a game manager. I think he's good enough to win. So I don't know. We'll see what Georgia has to offer, but Bama and Georgia by far has looked like the two best teams in college football.
So we are 4 weeks into college football, like 3 weeks done, but Clemson looks vulnerable. You know, nobody's as high on Ohio State anymore as they were in the beginning of the season. That's to be determined. But clearly there is a 4th spot technically up for grabs.
Yeah.
Right now, at this particular juncture in the season, who is your 4th best team?
Man, I don't want to say Iowa, but I mean Iowa has probably had 2 of the most impressive victories. I think if you look at them beating Indiana, I forgot what the score was, but it was like a 3-score game. They beat them, and then they also beat Iowa State. But I think right now I would say it is probably Bama 1, Georgia 2. I still go Oklahoma 3, and then at number 4, or A&M. A case can be made for A&M. I think to me the 4th spot is like, it's not even a number 4. It's like 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, because like you said, look, Ohio State, Penn State still got to play. Ohio State wins the Big Ten. They still got to play Iowa. Iowa looks like they're going to be a top 5 team. Like there's so much football left to be played. You know what I mean? That 4th, even I think the 3rd spot, Oklahoma still got to play TCU. They still got to play Texas. They got to make it through their slate undefeated. And I think Clemson can find a way too. If they can show that, we all know when it comes down to if these teams improve, we've seen it year in and year out, right? If all Oklahoma, Ohio State, Clemson improves, committee's not going to miss a chance to put one of those 3 in the college football playoff. We all know that, right? Like if Ohio State wins, I don't care what people think about CJ Stroud. If you get to the end and there's a 12-1 Big Ten champion, Ohio State, and their only loss is 3 points to Oregon at home in week 3 of you can build that story how you want to, and the same for Clemson or whatever. But I mean, the case can be made for Iowa. I don't think they're the number 4 team in college football, but Penn State as well. I think that's been a good win against Auburn too. So I look at that 4th spot as like a combination of like 6 teams right now.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, with Oregon winning at Ohio State, if they go undefeated, they're a shooing for sure.
Oregon. I completely forgot about it.
Because we're technically not used to having the Pac-12. At this point, it's usually like Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's not in the mix anymore or this year. So it's going to shape up to be rather interesting. And then as the season progresses, I'll be really interested to see what the committee thinks. Like honestly, I want to know what they think, because I mean we're kind of in a situation, and we had discussed this in private, where that Ohio State Oregon game pretty much fucked up everything.
Yeah,
as far as like because it
really
wasn't anticipated. Now some people might have expected it, but I think most of the college football pundits and fans didn't really anticipate them losing outright, at least not this early, and so it's kind of thrown a wrench into everything. And now the committee kind of has to work, because they can't justify bumping down a undefeated Pac-12 out of the top 4 for a 1-win Big Ten team. Like nobody's going to go for that. That conference is definitely not going to go for that. Yeah. And they've kind of been the redheaded stepchild in these last like 5 or 6 years, where like that year was Penn State and Washington. They had to fight to get in just for that. So it's kind of like the committee's stuck in a situation where like this particular committee, like they've got to define the rankings in a different way than everybody else. It's not going to be easy. But we're here in week 4. Week 4 is not as cute as all the other weeks, but I mean, we picked out some games that we think people will be interested in, and then obviously I think our game of the week will interest a lot of people, especially those in the SEC and those with SEC aspirations. But I'm not gonna pick on you, Ben, man. I see we got one viewer, and it's probably not Ben. Bless his heart, my man Ben.
Ben still got the swine flu, man.
Y'all pray for my man Ben Garcia. He used to be a loyal fan of ours, and we went to Fayetteville, and I think his heart.
Show some character, Ben, man. Show some heart. I take a L. You know what? I'm out in these streets, man. I show in my face. You take one bad loss to Arkansas and look at you. You're nowhere to be seen. You got COVID, you got the swine flu, you got all these mysterious diseases, and now nobody sees you all of a sudden. It was all gas, no brakes, all off season. Sark this, you're gonna this. We're shutting down the bull. I mean, we heard it all. Now nowhere to be found.
Now let's put it in reverse, Sarky.
It's gonna be a long season.
So we'll start with the Friday game. We don't typically cover Friday games, but this Friday game, I think, would interest a few people, especially those in the ACC, which with the vulnerability of Clemson right now, as far as how they look, I think has got a lot of people licking their chops. And so we've got Wake Forest visiting Virginia. The spread was 4, like when I was doing the write-up, but then it shifted to 3.5 on my bookie. So the over-under, I think, is still at 68.5, which I believe is kind of high. But what are your thoughts on this particular ACC Friday night matchup?
Man, it's been – listen, I think what I saw UVA is averaging 43 points a game or something crazy. Like, I know you look at this game, I mean, it's probably ultimately at the end of the season is going to really be like 2 7-6 caliber teams, but Wake Forest has looked really good on both sides of the ball early on in the year. And UVA has, they're averaging 43, I think it was like 43.1, 43.2 games or whatever. And Brennan Armstrong has been looking all right. I like UVA at the 3.5, and I like the over. I think both, it could be one of those just bad defensive Friday night games where, I mean, I've never seen UVA score 43 points. Listen, they haven't played the most toughest competition, but just to see an offense like that at UVA and at Wake Forest to be able to, Clawson's a good coach though, but I like the over, and I also like UVA at the 3.5. I do think they're a little bit better than Wake Forest up front.
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning to the UVA 3.5. One of the things here that I was looking for to get the official data on it, but I wanted to let everybody know, really take a look at teams in 2021 for college football who are on their first road game. They have not fared well against the number. I was witness to one of those games last week, the week before last. Again, not trying to pick on Ben, but that's essentially the buzzsaw that Texas ran into, and they were not the only team that ran into that. There was quite a few teams that's run into a buzzsaw when we're talking about covering the number as a dog in their first road game. 3.5 is kind of light, and he just talked about how prolific UVA's offense is. If we're doing a side,
they were leading at North Carolina last week until halftime, and they end up getting blown out. But
and if we want to do a side-by-side type comparison to the competition, it's not like Wake Forest has been playing a gauntlet. They had Florida State was a cupcake game, and then the week before that, I think they played a cupcake game, and they were both home games. So to me, it's a good spot to fade Wake Forest. I'm going to stick with the trend, and I'll take UVA to cover the spread here. Not as high on this over as I feel like I should be. So I'm going to pass on the over there and look into taking the under. So
you think, I was going to say, when was the last time I think I betted a UVA? To feel confident to put money on the Cavaliers, I'm like, man, I'm down bad. I'm looking for some real value this week. I'm betting UVA.
I'm trying to think. Oh, well, I did bet them against Illinois, but that don't count.
Yeah.
That don't count. But yeah, you're right. Like it has not been a consistent thing, but it's the ACC this year, man. It's trash. So I mean, you gotta find something. Which is odd to say again for the ACC. It's not the most bluest of bloods when it comes to football, but we don't typically degrade it this consistently. Like it's usually like at least they got Clemson. Like we can't even say that this year. The second game here is a game that will be near and dear to purist hearts. Notre Dame is traveling to Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a 6.5 point favorite. The over-under is 45 right now. Let's see. Everybody's really upset about Christian McCaffrey getting hurt. But
he's hurt already?
Yeah, he hurt his hamstring. I thought he was just doing the hop step, but no, he really hurt his hamstring. All right, Jeff says the first TD wins in this game. Jeff, you know what? I mean, traditionally that would be the case, but I really think Wisconsin's offense is underrated still. And I after watching Notre Dame against Toledo and watching Notre Dame against Florida State, their defense is going through a transition. They're like I know they got our boy at coordinator, and everybody had really, really high hopes, but clearly this defense is not up to par. Now the safety they got he's a beast, but he's just one player. I think it's just a lot going on. The team's in transition. We probably got like another 2 to 3 weeks maybe before we see Notre Dame come through in the fashion that people were expecting when they made the hire this offseason. I saw Milton and Gabriel put up points on these guys, man. And I mean, I hate to say it about my own team, but they're not good, bro. So Wisconsin at home, 6.5 is a little hefty, but I think they've got the defense to stop the run game for Notre Dame. And so I feel like if they can get them behind the sticks, I'm willing to take Wisconsin here. What about you, Marcus?
Man, Notre Dame's offense has been horrible this year. And they got Jack Cohn, who was the quarterback at Wisconsin before Graham Mertz. He transferred, who is the quarterback now at Notre Dame. And I don't know if people have been paying attention. Wisconsin's defense is always like that. They got a very, very solid defense. I mean, Jim Leonard has interviewed for NFL jobs, college jobs. Like, they got one of the better defensive schemes and just a great defense. And I don't see how Notre Dame is going to be able to consistently move the ball on them. But Graham Mertz, to me, is polarizing because, man, last year he showed signs of like, man, he's going to be one of the better Wisconsin quarterbacks. And then this year, he's just been flat out garbage, man. I mean, he's regressed, and they're going to try to take the ball out of his hands as much as they possibly can. And like you said, it's like I watched Florida State run down Notre Dame's throat in the second half of that game. And it's like, man, if you get bullied around by Florida State, Wisconsin's just going to run. I mean, they're going to maul you all game. So it's like I see it being a 26-17 type game, 28 maybe for Wisconsin. But if I had to on a betting line, I think, man, I'd take Wisconsin. It's 5.5. I would take them at the 5.5. Now the over under, 26-17 is a 43. Yeah, so it'll be an under type game. And like Jeff said, I mean, man, that Wisconsin at 26 points is a lot. That is a lot of points for them, So I don't see how anybody could be on the betting side of Notre Dame based on what we've seen in previous 2 weeks.
Yeah, one tidbit here too. I know in the past of just eye tests, Notre Dame and Brian Kelly have been absolutely trash in non-conference games. Not non-conference games, in their like road games in general. They just have not been a good team to back against a number, especially in positions where they're like a touchdown dog. Rarely do we see, like, to me, expectations for Notre Dame in a dog position are usually accurate. Whereas like some teams, you would look at this and be like, oh, I'll take the 6.5 or I'll take the 7. Like I never really find myself in a position with Notre Dame to say that. So when they're dogs, it's usually a reason that they're dogs and they usually don't cover. So they are 1-4. Notre Dame is 1-4 in their last 5 games against the spread. That's something to consider. Also considering that 2 of those games was 17-point favorite against Toledo. They didn't cover. And then I want to say a touchdown favorite against Florida State, and they didn't cover. So, yeah, Jeff, it's definitely a game that if you're thinking about
I don't blame you.
If you're thinking about doing Notre Dame, don't touch it. You're not willing to lay it on Wisconsin. You're not going to lay it with Wisconsin.
I have no consumer confidence. I have no consumer confidence in Wisconsin, man.
Yeah. So this next game was a game that I had highlighted, was kind of near and dear to my heart because I'm really a big fan of the coach. Missouri is visiting Boston College. Boston College is to me a head-scratching 1.5 dog. The over-under is at 58. Now I was told that
they're starting quarterback out for the year too. Jerkovich? Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, they lost Jerkovich or Jerkovich. He's out for the year. He broke like his collarbone or something like that.
Okay. All right. See, I hate that about college football. They're not as open about injuries as like the NFL. Like NFL, I'd had a million alerts. Everybody would have known. It'd have been all over the place. College football is like Did he practice? Did he play? He got kicked off the team. When did that happen? Yesterday. Oh, damn. So it's kind of weird. All right, so it's not a head scratcher then if Jerkovic is hurt. He is a big key component to their offensive scheme and what they do on offense. So with that being said, now I'm like, well, damn, Missouri is getting a gift here. If they're only favored by a point and a half, I'm willing to take Mizzou. I mean, if I'm going against the backup, it's not even worth discussing. So,
yeah, I'm with you on that one, man. I'd take Mizzou probably by a touchdown. I mean, actually a lot of transfers now. It's like free agents because the quarterback that's starting now, the backup, was also the quarterback that was at Missouri. Okay. I forgot his name, but now, yeah, like you said, without Jerkovic, man, I mean, they were going to be an ACC kind of dark horse 8-win type team with him. You know, he's going to be a top 3 round pick at quarterback. So to lose him at a Boston College is not a place that reloads. I mean, you know, they lose a guy like that, it's officially like he's going to impact like 2 to 3 games at least, you know. So I'm with you, man. It's not even worth it to even try to even side with BC on this point. And I think Missouri's defense is just going to get after them, and they're going to, you know, Mizzou, and it has a solid scheme. They got a good, decent offense. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think load up on Mizzou, and I would say the under. I'll probably take the under on that one.
Yeah, they've got some injuries on the defensive side of the ball from Missouri too. You know, I'll just go ahead. Jeff just needs to get constant sound bites. Not touching this game. Not touching this game. But you know what? Again, we, like I said before we started the podcast, there's going to be some games that we're going to have to force excitement about this week. It's kind of a down week for gamblers and college football fans. But we got Coach O, a.k.a. Mumble Mouth, visiting the Pirate, Mississippi State, plus 2.5, over-unders at 56.5. Man, I don't even know what to think of this game other than the last 2 times I've counted Mississippi State out thinking that they were going to, you know, pack it up. They have not. They've actually played really well. And surprisingly, they've been playing some decent defense. So,
yeah.
What are we gonna get out of LSU? Is this like what are we gonna get?
Nobody knows. I think what you saw is, he said revenge. The team that you saw lose to UCLA is the team that you're gonna get. I think this is a 6 to 7 win team in LSU. I think Coach O is finding out that, man, the Bayou don't love him as much as he thought they did. And like you said, Mississippi State, I think, I don't know. The game I watched them play, I wasn't really impressed with their offense, which is surprising to say under Mike Leach, you know, being the head coach, and the defenses look solid. But, I mean, I would say the over is probably looking good just from thinking Mississippi State is probably going to get a lot of possessions, play some tempo, and they'll probably find a way because the LSU's defense isn't good. You know, they've got dang, I forgot his name, but he was the assistant defensive coordinator for Zimmer and at Minnesota. He's the defensive coordinator now at LSU. And I was like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's a pro scheme maybe it's too complex. I don't know what it is, but it hasn't looked good. And LSU just hasn't. I mean, they've looked slow, man. They haven't looked like an explosive team. Like, you know, usually LSU keeps a lot of athletes, and regardless of how bad the coaching is, they have enough athletes to kind of overcome that, and they've looked explosive. But I haven't seen that from LSU this year, and I think we might be looking at the end of Ed Orgeron.
I'm okay with that. I mean, you know, I gave him what? I think I gave him 2, maybe 3 years after Joe Brady left. I said that was essentially Joe Brady's success. It wasn't Coach O's. Like, I mean, I get Mumble Mouth's pedigree, but I've never been really impressed with him as a head coach. I think this is the guy you're talking about here. So there is a revenge aspect here. I think that I would be on board with that if I felt like, you know, the games that I've watched LSU play, I don't get the vibe that the kids are really playing for the coach. I don't feel like they're really into the program. LSU used to be like an energetic team. Even when they were not national champions, there was a lot of pride about playing for LSU. The fans had a lot of pride. Like, it just seemed like there was different energy. I don't get that feeling from the team this year. So I'm willing to fade them here because, I mean, if there's anybody that can continue to give people like Coach O headaches, is Mike Leach doing some random, inexplicable things. One thing that works out for Mississippi State too is that they do have a top 10 passing offense, which should allow them to continue to be successful. Obviously, we all know about Mike Leach and air raid. It is very difficult to stop. LSU, like you had said, they just seem a tad step slow compared to what we're used to seeing, and I think that's going to come back to haunt them in this particular matchup. So plus 2.5, to me, it is a lot like the UCLA line. I think the UCLA line, I think they were plus 2.5 or plus 3, and I think everybody jumped on the LSU idea because it's LSU. It's a known program. Seems a little trappy, and I don't anticipate that the Mississippi State Bulldogs are going to have a down game, especially after how their game last week ended. So I'm willing to keep that going. Now, Jeff, I hope you are still here, buddy, because I want to get your opinion on this one. We can't find Ben. We put out an APB for Ben, but he's no longer with us apparently. But we are still going to talk about Texas football. The second best team in Texas, Texas Tech, is playing the third best team in Texas. Oh, no, this isn't TCU. Sorry, this is regular Texas. So the fourth best team in Texas is taking on Texas Tech. Texas is laying 8.5. The over-under is at 62. If there was a team that won but didn't look all that impressive based on the win, I gotta say it was Texas last week against Rice. Like, they won definitely, but like every neutral person that I've seen talk about the game is just still a tad bit disappointed in some of the nuances going on with Texas offensive line and some of their execution. Like, they made the quarterback switch. Obviously, I'm willing to give him more than one game. But Texas Tech has been playing some competitive football. And like Jeff said, and this was a key for me, last 5 or 6 games have been one possession football games. We're talking about 8.5. Like that's a big number for a Texas team that clearly has some issues on the offensive line. And honestly, on the defensive side of the ball, it just hasn't been going as well as people anticipated. And I have seen these Texas Tech games where Texas gets ahead early and people think it's over, and then Texas Tech comes charging back. One thing to note, Texas Tech defense is pretty decent against the run. I don't think that's something that people anticipated this year. That's probably the main way that Texas wants to move the ball. So it's going to be strength on strength here. What do you think?
Man, I think ultimately we saw Texas get just gouged up front by Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if Texas Tech's run game is that good, but, I do think they can run the ball well enough. And, man, Texas Tech, they threw for like 600 yards last week or something like that. So Texas secondary is going to get tested, but I think ultimately Texas should be able to run some more. I mean, they had 400 yards of rushing on Rice last week. So I think you just feed Bijan and you just continue to play your game, because I think Casey Thompson's been okay. I mean, in his first couple starts, I don't think he's been great. I don't think he's been bad. He's been okay. But I think that people were expecting a little bit more for Sark to be able to, get a little bit more out of him. But I mean, I think Texas by 8, I think that was the line, 8.5. I think that's safe. I think Texas will win like 35 to 23 or something like that, 35 to 20 or something.
Yeah, and my other concern with Texas is how they don't really block well against the blitz. I stand by my statement that I said to Ben in the chat that there had to be something on film early in the season that Arkansas saw, because they literally blitzed every third down and they literally blitzed the exact same way every time, and they were able to really disrupt Texas offense from weak side blitzes. Like the primary attack from the blitz was from the weak side. I don't know if maybe that was something so unconventional that Sarkey wasn't prepared for it, but it just seemed to really work. Jeff is going to lay the 8.5. Jeff, I don't know yet. I'll have to really go back and think on that, because when you tell me this,
I ain't laying it.
Yeah, when you tell me this, I'm not really feeling it. I'm not really feeling it. Look, and when you say things like that, Jeff, again, I'm not really feeling it. And it's a game for Texas Tech to really come out and play hard. And we talked about this at the beginning of the season. The Big 12 gonna be a gauntlet for Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Those teams don't like them. The programs don't like them, and then the conference in general feels like Texas and Oklahoma kind of spit in their face by making the deal with the SEC. So I mean, every week you're probably going to get the best version of all these teams that you play. I'm going to go ahead and take my points here, Jeff. Yeah. Not because I hate Texas, but because I'm going to take my points. The next game is our Group of 5 game that we were going to highlight, and I know a lot of our listeners don't necessarily watch the Group of 5, but I can tell you right now this is going to be a good one. UTSA, my road runners, UTSA going to Memphis. Memphis is laying 3, over under 66.5. We talked about UTSA in the preseason, and I specifically discussed that this team is probably the only team in college football that brought back like all 22 kids. Like it's the exact same team from last year. And last year's team was overachievers. They got a great coach who really has the pulse of the kids. And yes, Jeff, I am with you on this. Over. Break it down, over. Like 66.5 is just not enough, man. I mean, of course you think a team with the mascot of the Roadrunners is going to really literally run it up. But UTSA can score with the best of them, man. And the Memphis Tigers, they're one of those teams that no matter what part of the game we're at, you got to expect they're going to go on some kind of spurt. There's going to be 21 to 28 points at any given time. And then when they do go on those spurts, they absolutely give up points in the process. I like this matchup. I think if we're talking about an entertainment factor, it's probably going to be the most entertaining game this Saturday.
Yep. From just an offensive standpoint, for sure. I think, man, UTSA, they play fast, man. I mean, former Oregon, just big breakneck pace. And like you said, I've been pretty impressed with them. I watched them the first week of the season. I haven't watched them since then. But, I do like the over in this. I think Memphis, I haven't seen Memphis this year. I think they're not on TV as much as they were. They're struggling a little bit. But I think I saw a quarter of them, and they looked okay. I mean, they haven't looked like, a Group of 5 contender like they have in the past. So, I mean, I like the over on the 66.5. I'm with you and Jeff as well. But from Memphis with the 3 points, I think that's fair. I mean, I honestly think it's closer to a pick'em than a 3-point game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that the 3 that they're getting is just standard because they're home.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you think that's a pick'em, that I think that's actually the correct logic behind that particular line. Just another tidbit here. The Memphis Tigers defense allows 32 points per game. That is ranked 229th in FBS. They allow 494 total yards per game. They have one of the worst defenses against the pass.
That's crazy.
And that's just absolutely insane that they have been able to go 4-0 against the spread at home in their last 4 home games. Because this isn't like all of a sudden this just happened. Like they've always been bad on defense. UTSA are 5-0 in their last 5 games against the spread. They're 6-0 against the spread in their last 6 games while playing on field turf, which is not often something that people consider. But if you can handle that, if it makes your team faster or your team's more comfortable on that particular surface, that can matter. But yeah, like Jeff said, home field, you're going to get the 3 anyway by just standard. So that's essentially what we're looking at here. I'm going to be willing to take a chance on UTSA to cover. Or in the last couple games that I watched with Memphis, they've started kind of slow, but they've come back and won games and it's been kind of tight. Last week when they beat Mississippi State was kind of controversial and they just barely squeaked by. But like Jeff said, trends are trends for a reason. this is somebody got to lose trend. You got a team that's 5-0 against the spread at home. You got a team that's 5-0 against the spread on the road. At some point, somebody got to lose. I'm going to definitely be heavy on the 66.5 over, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right. A game that is near and dear to our hearts and the hearts of Harbaugh haters alike here. Rutgers. Rutgers is visiting Michigan. For some odd reason, I don't know, maybe I'm just not up to date. Michigan is a 20.5 favorite. The over-under is 49.5. Now, I just want to clarify this. Washington came into this game. They came into this game losing to like a JUCO, and they were only a 7 to 9 point underdog. I don't know who Rutgers has beat that was so bad that they're 20 point underdog to Michigan, but this just seems like a gross overreaction to me, man. I don't know.
My thing is, I think Rutgers defense is good to keep it within that 20-point range.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think Rutgers has the offense to keep up, but I mean, like you said, Michigan has looked good against, albeit, MAC level competition. So when I said that earlier and I looked at the line, I was like, man, I think maybe Rutgers, and it's a look ahead game, I think, for Michigan. They got Wisconsin next week. So for me, it's like, man, I don't know if when does Michigan cover lines at 20 points? And I'm like, I don't care who the opponent is. I'm like, in conference anyway. And it's like, I don't know. When I saw that earlier, I really, really liked it. And I think I'm going to.
Good question, Jeff. Let me see here. So the over under, yeah, no, for real. It's really if the over under, let's round up and say it's 50.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at it's about 15.5.
Yep.
Between 15 16 points. So yeah, I mean, Jesus, bro.
That's what I'm like, man.
I don't think Rutgers is that bad with Shiano that this should be a real line against this Michigan team. Like this is like Justin Fields playing in Columbus type line, like, and I think even and that was during the COVID year, I don't even think they were laying that many at first. So it's just a conference game. Shiano's familiarity with Michigan as a program, Harbaugh ain't changed that much. It's just a tricky line to me. I don't foresee this going Michigan State style where they outright lose with being a 21-point favorite. But history has shown recently that during the Harbaugh era, a line this big is usually
it can be a little tricky.
Where you need to fade, and I mean, that kind of scares me too. If the public is going to be heavy on Rutgers, I need to check to see where the money's going. But Michigan is such a popular team too that honestly, a lot of people with them winning, they're not really buying into the idea that they won't cover. Yeah. But I go back a couple years, I think it was 2018. I took Army in a situation like this, and they covered, and it was 20 points. We took Michigan State when they were 25-point dogs. We took the points with them. I mean, it's recent, like it's some recent history there that supports that you probably should just take your points here. But we'll see. Again, Rutgers, if they don't turn the ball over, I don't foresee Michigan walking them down, running them over that much that they're going to just outright cover this particular number. Let's see. We'll skip over our game of the week. We'll say that for last. Let's go to this next game here. Going back to the Big 12. Kansas State is visiting Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is favored by 5.5. The over-under is 46.5. I was going to say, I guess we cover this game because this was the anniversary week for I'm a Man. Oklahoma State has not been impressive to me this year.
No, they haven't.
Been kind of an eyesore, which is unfortunate. But Kansas State has some potential to throw a wrench in some plans in that conference. I would argue that they're ahead of schedule to most people's expectations this year. 5.5. Jeff. Yeah, it's funny when Oklahoma and Texas leave, all of a sudden the Big 12 turns into the Big 10.
But it's like, man, two just it's surprising for Oklahoma State too, because Gundy's an offensive guy and they usually score points. You know, they usually have pretty solid offenses.
Yeah, and it's surprising because Spencer's been in that offense for what, 2-3 years now. You would expect him to get better, and it looks like some regression. I don't think I can think of a time when Van Gundy's had a quarterback and he's regressed. Usually they get better, and then they peak around their junior year. If they stay for a senior year, they're still really good. But it's not often that we see them like go like trending down. But I think Spencer's trending down. And one thing to note too is that he's not very durable. Which both quarterbacks are not very durable. So 46.5 over under is crazy.
That is crazy
for an Oklahoma State home game for sure.
And I'm kind of siding with the under, man. Kansas State offense and Oklahoma State's passing attack has done nothing to make it. Kansas State defense has been good. It's like, it's a matchup game, and I'm looking at it like, man, maybe Oklahoma State wins in a 23-20 ish game.
So I'm gonna drop some knowledge on you guys. There's probably not a Power 5 school more loose with the ball than Oklahoma State's program. Like from fumbles to interception, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous how like careless they are with the ball. And I think in this situation, knowing what I know about Kansas State, they don't really turn the ball over. If I'm playing against a team like Oklahoma State that has the potential to give me points, I'm going to take the 5.5, 6 with Kansas State. And then with the over under at 46.5, I mean, you have to worry if you're an underbacker, you have to worry that Oklahoma State doesn't literally give Kansas State 21 to 24 points by stupid unforced turnovers like fumbling snaps and things like that in their side of the field. So let me get my points with Kansas State here in a game that has potential to be entertaining if we can just dial it back like a decade and bring back our boy Sproles. Bring back Sproles and Crabtree, Mason Rudolph and those guys. We could bring back the all-time greats for both teams. It would be an entertaining game. All right, so our marquee game, Jeff, cover your eyes, cover your ears. Our marquee game, baby. Jerry's World, Texas A&M is taking on Arkansas. Arkansas is getting 5. In Jerry's World, the over-under is at 47. I think it's going to be a good game. How good? I'm not sure. My heart tells me that Texas A&M is going to overmatch Arkansas based on what I've seen, and that Arkansas has been riding a 2-week high, and at some point they got to come back down to earth. Yeah. But my gut is telling me that Jerry Jones is not going to let his alma mater get embarrassed in his
At Jerry's World, they're going to be some $100,000 handshakes in the next couple of days.
Jerry said, "I will turn the lights off in this bitch." What do you think, man?
Man, I will say this, but Jeff said I think Arkansas is too one-dimensional for AM. Yeah. I do think they're one-dimensional. I think both teams have a problem scoring points. Mm-hmm. I think we've seen that Hayes King has been okay, and considering that he has NFL talent around him, a lot of it's just been kind of confusing, and they haven't been great in the red zone, and the passing game just isn't efficient. They're just not hitting people. It just doesn't look in rhythm. So I think it's going to be a fairly low-scoring game. I think it's going to be a 27-20 type game, A&M over Arkansas. And I think A&M just covered the 5.5 with a 7-point win, but I think the under is going to be under the 47 points.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting that this line opened up at about 7.5, and it's been bet down so much. Who's hurt, Jeff? Give me some details. But
is he hurt?
Man, look, when it comes to college injuries, man, honestly, I can't stand it. I feel like it's like WNBA. I don't know until basically I see the lineup. All right, so King is hurt. That might sway my opinion. But this is a game that I feel like having seen Arkansas in person, and having watched
Calzada, he did play the last couple of weeks. Jeff is right. Yeah, I do remember that.
Having seen Texas A&M play the last couple of weeks, Calzada is the backup quarterback. I was not impressed with him at all. Actually, I was very concerned. It started with the Colorado game. I was like, this ain't looking good. Arkansas is the type of team that if you allow them to hang around, they're going to give you fits. They can win the games that they're allowed to get the necessary time to get going, because they're not fast starters typically. They didn't really start that fast against Texas either, and I kind of got that vibe. But Texas allowed them to hang around. They gave them a lot of 3 and outs. a lot of 3 and outs. Thank you, Jeff. I love you too. But it's one of those things where I feel like the neutral site is definitely going to help them more than it would hurt them. And that we might get with Calzada at quarterback, they might get a shorter field and more opportunities to play the type of game that they need to play to win, which would be an ugly grind out game. If it's an ugly grind out game, if King was playing, that would favor A&M. But with Calzada and them not necessarily moving the ball up and down the field like they need to, they could potentially lose a field position defensive battle here.
Yep.
And so this is our game of the week, and I think it's the game of the week because it's the most exciting game on paper. But personally, I'm going to be more up to watch UTSA in Memphis. I guess if I got to do a recap, I'm landing will be UVA this week. I'm landing on UVA, which please don't tell nobody. Matter of fact, I'm gonna delete this when I'm done. But yeah, that's my pick of the week. Don't know if I necessarily have somebody on upset alert. It would have been the Marshall team game tonight, even though most of the indicators were saying Appalachian State could get it done by as much as 10. Still a lot of football left to play, but last I checked, Marshall was up 23-21. As always, Jeff is saying hook them, and as always, Texas is hooking their fans. But rolling back through, there's really not a high line for.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Yeah. So I guess upset alert, put A&M on upset alert. That's fine. All right, Marcus. You
maybe one.
Go ahead.
Clemson, NC State. 10-point line. That could get a little interesting.
Yeah. And we didn't really cover that, but NC State has been a thorn in a lot of people's sides in these particular spots where you're coming into North Carolina State. I do not agree with this. I do not agree with. We'll make this a quick hit. I do not agree that Nebraska's upsetting Sparty. I think Sparty's got the momentum, man. They got a good thing going, man. Tucker ain't playing no games this year. Yeah, he's got this team looking good. And if there's one thing that give Nebraska fits, is physical teams. Like Spartans are a physical team. They punched Miami in the mouth, man. And Miami didn't necessarily roll over until they literally just couldn't get back up without getting punched in the mouth again.
Nebraska not going to score enough. Their defense is good. Their defense has been pretty solid. The offense has not been good enough to win games.
I just can't trust Scott Frost, man. I just can't do it. I can't. He just he's just too much of a punk. Like the team, the team to me is a team they're punk. I feel like every time I see a team that can run the ball physically, or they've got physical players on the offensive side of the ball, I always feel like that reminds me of the Colorado team that punched Nebraska in the mouth. The teams who have really beat Nebraska in the last and during the Scott Frost era generally have been the ones that literally punched them in the mouth, and I feel like that's what Michigan State has. I agree. I thought the line should be a little bit higher, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what angle are. Maybe they think that Michigan State is going to be on a high from beating Miami, but the team that I see with Michigan State, since the first play that they've run this season against Northwestern is a team that's on a mission. Yep. And I've seen them come in every single game with the same mentality that we're the best team on this field right now, and they play that way. I don't see them having a game where they're looking ahead or looking around somebody, because the expectations were, and we talked about this before the season, that they would probably be a two-win team. Yeah. And they have been like every week 2-win team. Who bunch of Reese Davis,
the fighting Reese Davis, for sure.
But they've been doing their thing, man. So that's a game again we didn't necessarily cover. It made it a quick hit, but Nebraska versus Michigan State should be an interesting game, and I think I might be with Jay when that happens, so I'll go live and give you guys his reaction. All right, Marcus, I got you out here at 10:02, man. Tell me don't be mad at me, bro. All right, thanks, man.
I appreciate it. Next week, man.
All right, bro.
All right, later.